Good evening from Wales, wrestling fans. It is officially Royal Rumble Day, and I am so hyped. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are watching Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. And despite the fact that the Royal Rumble is in just a few hours' time, first of all, we have to talk about last night's episode of SmackDown, and if 3-hour SmackDowns are too long. But before we get into all of that, let me introduce today's panel, and let's kick things off with Anthony Ricciardi. Anthony, my question for you today is, who do you think will be winning both of the Royal Rumbles tonight?
Wow, I didn't even get my intro about head of opinions or sold separately. None of that. A little disappointing. Clark does better than that, Ben. No, the Royal Rumble, I think it's down for the men's. I'm torn between three names. I think Roman, Punk, Cena on the off chance. But of those, I'm leaning more towards Punk and Roman. If I'm forced to choose, I'm going to go Roman. For the women's, I am torn between Charlotte and I do think of returning Becky Lynch. I am going to go Charlotte for the women's.
Well, there we are, all of us on the...
For Soul, I got my MJF ring just to
nice.
For purposes that he wanted to see it on the show.
Absolutely. You'll now be knocking people out left, right, and center with that. Soul loves it there in the comments. Also, interestingly, everyone on the prediction show yesterday said Charlotte as well. Just everybody seems to be predicting Charlotte, which is, I mean, let's see if she does win it or not. I Make Beat says that he's hyped too. Let's get this. Absolutely. In fact, I was so hyped. Not only did I mess up Anthony's intro today, but yesterday I didn't give a shout out, which I really should have given. Maybe the biggest whiff of my career. But shout out to Shard for having a kid now. His kid was born a couple of days ago. Shout out to him, and I hope all is well and he'll be back very soon indeed. But also joining us today, we have one of the hosts of Sunday Night Spotlight, Megan Ambers. How are you today, Megan? And who is your predictions?
Ooh, hey everybody, happy Rumble Day. Ben kind of loaded this question on us just a few seconds before we started recording, so I didn't really have much time to think, since this is one of the most unpredictable Royal Rumbles in the last couple of years. But I'm kind of torn, like Anthony, when it comes down to both the men and women. Well, more so the men than the women. I do feel like for the men, it could possibly run between two people. CM Punk, of course, the one who has never had a main event at WrestleMania, or the underdog, my ginger brother, Sami Zayn. I do feel like there is an underlined story with Sami in the last couple of weeks, and they probably is hinting that this might be Sami's moment. And as for the women's Royal Rumble, of course, I'm going with the Queen, Charlotte Flair.
There we are. Everybody so far at Wrestling Republic has predicted Charlotte Flair. That is absolutely nuts. I Make Beat says congratulations to Shard. Absolutely. And Omega Red says, yes, 3-hour SmackDowns need to end. I always fall asleep trying to watch them. We'll talk about that later on in the show, no doubt. I Make Beat says, I vote Punk and Charlotte. I mean, there we are, another Charlotte as well. But CM Punk, another good shout indeed. But now let's talk about CM Punk. Let's talk about Kevin Owens. Let's talk about last night's episode of Friday Night SmackDown. Because if you turned on the show, you actually didn't get to see Punk and Owens straight away. Instead, you got to see 10 minutes of the commentators just waffling and a 7-minute promo on why Indianapolis is so good. Now, I've never been to Indianapolis. Maybe it's amazing, right? But typically, if a place is good, you don't need to do a 7-minute promo telling people it's good. So maybe I'll have heat with people from Indianapolis on this one, but I'm beginning to turn heel on it. But we then did get a phenomenal promo between CM Punk and Kevin Owens. Anthony, what were your thoughts on all of this?
Listen, anything that Punk's involved with is must-see. because he is a lightning rod in this business. For people that know Punk's history, they know that him and Kevin Owens do not get along. Back in the day, Kevin Owens openly talked about it in shoot interviews that, he'd be in the ROH locker room and Punk was the veteran. And Punk went up to him and went, listen, you're never going to make it in this business. Your weight, you're wrestling in a t-shirt, you're not going to make it. And then you think about it, Kevin Owens is the one that main evented a WrestleMania with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Two of the things that CM Punk openly has said he wanted. So Owens has gotten what Punk has never been able to get. So he's proven him wrong. Plus, we also know Kevin Owens' history, where some of his best friends in the business are the Young Bucks, who are probably two of the biggest CM Punk haters in the business. So there's a lot of issues. So anytime you get the two of them in the ring, and it's must-see TV. And Punk has had two segments this week, both on Raw and on SmackDown, that were must-see because there was an element of believability in them. So I very much want to see a Punk Kevin Owens feud. Like, coming out of this, I want to see more of this. The other thought I had, and I messaged this, I believe, to Kobe during SmackDown, and I've openly said the Winged Eagle is probably my favorite title other than the Big Gold. I kind of want to see CM Punk hold the Winged Eagle at some point. I would love to see that come back as the full-time title because Kevin Owens holding it looks awesome. Cody looked great with it. And I think it would kind of be one of those wish fulfills, I think, for Punk, because that's the belt he grew up on. It's the belt I grew up on. It's the belt most of us, Megan as well, grew up on. That was the title. That was the definitive one. So it is very cool to see it back. But yeah, I very much want to see more Kevin Owens and Punk because you could do what you did with Seth and Punk. There's elements of realism to it, and that's what makes it compelling. Punk and Cody, we're going to see that at some point. Probably Homelander Cody and Punk is the most likely, but it's interesting and it's compelling, and that's what wrestling is. It's storytelling, it's character, it's compelling characters to draw you into a compelling story. That's why WWE's on the trajectory that they are right now.
No doubt about it. And absolutely, I would love for the Winged Eagle to come back as well. But like you said, everything CM Punk touches becomes must watch. That is undeniable. Say what you want about him. And David Garcia on the chat over on Instagram says, I met Punk last night and I finally understand the Punk hatred. I mean, we can say what we want about the man outside of the ring, right? But when he's in that ring and he's got a mic, everything he does is must watch. There's no doubt about it.
It's also the context too, and I'm not saying anything with David with his interaction with him because I've never been around Punk, but it's also where did you run into him at? He's notorious. He doesn't like people running into him at the airport. The other thing was I think he posted something on social media. He met up with Danhausen last night.
Okay.
Like the restaurant gave him a piece of cheesecake. He's like, I got the Rumble. He goes, Danhausen ate it. And then Danhausen posted a thing and went, I did. And I think I messaged Archie this morning and went, I know this is unlikely, but a small part of me really wants CM Punk's favor to be that Paul Heyman gets him Danhausen, his little buddy. I really want to
imagine if that is the favor.
Because I could see Danhausen there with a t-shirt that literally just says favor. Like, they could have so much fun with that.
Oh, that would be hilarious. MDB gives Megan a shout out. Shout out, Megan, no doubt about it. Sean Ellis says, aloha, everybody. Shout out to you, Sean Ellis. And MDB says CM Punk was speaking truths about KO last night. Megan, what was your thoughts on all of it?
It's like I've said before, you put CM Punk with a mic across anyone in that ring, your whole attention is going to go to that particular segment. We saw it with him and Seth. We've seen it with him and Drew. We saw it with him and Cody Rhodes. And we saw it last night between him and Kevin Owens. I I see what they're doing here. And what it seems as though is they're giving us little inklets, little hints that the Royal Rumble is not going to be the way that we think it's going to be. Like any one of these men can face each other for WrestleMania. But what it really seems as though they're really pushing for CM Punk to be that guy, to be that person. So that's why I'm hoping that my predictions is true. But it's like Anthony said, there is some truth when it comes down to these promos with CM Punk and Kevin having their own personal feud. The same with CM Punk and Seth. Now, when I think about the promo between CM Punk and Cody, I think that was the first time. I mean, I think everybody saw that Cody was a little frazzled during that whole promo, but I think that's the first time Cody is probably questioning CM Punk. The first time he can really see what everyone is saying. I think he's kind of late to the party. Like, he is seeing what everyone has been saying about CM Punk, which is he is of no friend to no one. He is only a friend to himself. But not only did Kevin remind CM Punk what he didn't achieve, CM Punk had to also remind him the things that he achieved that he wouldn't want to achieve, which is losing to Logan Paul, which I think is a major factor. I would have been offended behind that if I was LA Knight, a few times. But I think also just the fact that Kevin had lost so many titles at WrestleMania, I think that kind of like got underneath his skin, which is what CM Punk wanted to do. So, I think last night is the first time that in my way of thinking, Kevin could actually beat Cody tonight.
Wow.
I think that was the first time I thought maybe Kevin could win this after all. Maybe. I was so sure wild. Cody was going to take the win, but now I'm a little conflicted.
It is funny with that because I had said on Saturday Night's Main Event, I remember doing a show with you, Ben, I don't remember who else was on it, but I said I could see Kevin Owens take this because I don't necessarily think Cody needs the title going into Mania because I don't know what direction they're going. Whether if The Rock's out of it, the three-way's probably not happening. Roman's not, if Kevin Owens wins it, then I think it's a lock that Sami Zayn wins the Rumble because that is the person that Kevin Owens is going to face. Right. I like the direction they're going with Cody because Cody's sort of unraveling, and I compare it to Lord of the Rings with Gollum with the ring. That it's corrupting him, and that's what Punk was bringing out. That's what Punk was saying. That title will corrupt you. And if you think back, if they're doing long-term storytelling, if you remember, Cody said after he won the title at 40, Cena went up to him and went, now the weight is on you. You don't understand the weight of that position until you're in it. And that's not just a storyline. There's a lot of responsibilities as the face of the company, the interviews, the gates at the box office, the ratings. That's all on you. The pressure is on you because you are the face of the brand.
That's true.
I like the point that you brought up because I mentioned this on another podcast. Of all the people that Cody had faced up, all of them had somehow had some training with Dusty. Mm-hmm. And they always remind Cody that he never did. Now, although his father never reached the lengths that Cody has, I feel like Cody was never properly prepared to be in this position that he is in because he lacked that training from his father. He had to learn from other people. Even Dustin had some sort of training with Dusty.
He tagged with him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Cody spent most of his career chasing after the dream that he felt his father had, the dream that his father have shared, without, like you said, thinking of what comes with the sleepless nights, the being on road hundreds of days out of the year, to have to put on a brave face, to have to push through your tiredness, being the first one in, the last one to leave. No, Cody was not prepared for that, but he did enjoy the attention and the responsibility that came with it until I think it took, I want to say it was when him and Carmelo first had that first interaction, when Carmelo kind of was,
yes.
Yes, well, a little after that, when Carmelo said, it's about time someone tells him what everyone's been saying, which I think in a not really a narcissistic sense, but in a way of thinking in perspective of Cody, he probably thought that all of his peers would be happy for him. All his peers would be rooting and cheering him on. And he's realizing that the higher he has gone up, people are starting to turn their backs on him. People are talking about him. People are not rooting for him as much. He got the fans, but he doesn't have his peers. Yes, it's very lonely.
It's very lonely at the top. The target's on your back. Like Austin always used to say, if you're not in the business to be at the top of the business, you shouldn't be in it. And there's also an element because we see the cracks, we see the paranoia. We know Homelander Cody is coming eventually, but the paranoia works, especially when Kevin turned on him. We all thought Randy would be the one to turn on him. I honestly think he's going to be the one to turn on Randy. I think that's where we're going to see it. Cena will pull it out of him when they probably cross paths.
Yeah.
Especially since The Rock's not, presumably The Rock's not in play, considering The Rock buried the hatchet out of nowhere on Netflix. I'm assuming that's no longer in play, but we're going to see Homelander Cody some point in 25.
I really hope you're correct. And, I so badly do. I don't.
It's probably going to be after Mania, though.
I said it yesterday. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he might earn too much money, but I hope I'm wrong about that because it is a gold mine to hit. David Garcia over on Instagram says that he met Punk at the restaurant and it was him who sent the cheesecake and card. It was meant as a dig, but he didn't think it was from him. I mean, that is golden. That absolutely is. Why did you send it, though? Like, why were you giving a dig at him? Was there more context to that? I want to find out.
Also, one other question. Does it bother you that Danhausen got it? I just want to know.
Oh, that's hilarious. No doubt about it. I Make Beats has enjoyed Punk's recent promos more. Sean Ellis says he's a bit of a hypocrite like Seth Rollins. Fair enough. But now let's move on to talk about the Women's United States Championship. Because there are three things certain in life: death, taxes, and Chelsea Green versus Michin. I said when these two first feuded in that dumpster match match feud that it was a brilliant feud. It was thoroughly entertaining. And I really do think that really pushed WWE to introduce these women's singles championships, right? The United States and Intercontinental ones. But it's starting to drag a little bit to me now. I love Chelsea Green. I love Michin. But don't they have anything else to do? Anthony, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I want to point out the fact that when they announced the dumpster match, I had wrote a fantasy booking thing said that she should have found the Divas title in there, and it would eventually morph into the U.S. or Intercontinental title. So I'm going to take a little credit on that one. But this is one of those situations where I think Michin and Chelsea have a lot of chemistry together. I think Chelsea was the right choice to be women's U.S. champion, the first one or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's kind of stuck in a situation where I don't know if they have an idea where to put challengers. Like Michin's a great challenger. If the plan is that Michin's going to take this title off of her, I'm okay with that as long as you have a direction with this. But if you literally just like all right, we don't know who else to put Chelsea with. Like, you have such a stacked women's roster. How do you not have challengers for this? That you only have Michin? Like, that's the only issue that I have with it. But if the goal is for Michin to chase her and then take it off of her, I don't think the match will be at Mania. I really don't think the secondary titles are going to make Mania. They may make the SmackDown and Raw before it. I just don't. I think it's going to be too stacked. I think they're going to do other stuff. But I do think Michin could take it off, or if that's the plan. If the plan is just to have Chelsea continue to beat her, it doesn't really do anything for her or the title, really, because she's beaten her multiple times. She's only lost to her in the dumpster, really, and that's so. Unless you do another dumpster match, I don't really see the logic here. But I think she needs more challengers. I think you need to go in a different direction. But Chelsea's the right choice, but she needs to be the heel that everyone's chasing. And then when she gets beat, it makes the person that beats her, because she's the champion that nobody could beat because she was able to slip through, whether Piper Niven helped her or she used dirty tactics. That's the way this works. That's how you build up a title. That's how you make it mean something. But continuing to beat Michin with as long as they have a goal in mind, I don't have an issue with it. I'm not too ready to bury it, but you kind of want to see some mix in here if they're some sign that there's a direction, I think is what I'd be asking for here.
Yeah, I completely do agree with you, Anthony. I mean, we got MDB in the chat here saying Piper is now known as the Secret Hervis. It's hilarious, no doubt about it. But do we hate rivalries being built? Absolutely. But building a rivalry is not doing the same match over and over and over again. And I said last week, if this was the final one last night, I would have been fine with it. But there's so many people in that women's division for Chelsea Green to feud with. But I agree, right? We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. But I agree with I Make Beats. Chelsea Green is great. But let me tell you what is also great, guys. And what is also great is Etsy. Now, in case you guys don't know what Etsy is, basically it's a new app which we have partnered with, and we can do streams on there. But the difference between us doing streams on there and here is on there, you guys can jump on the stream. You can unmute your mics, you can talk to us, you can show your cameras if you want to, and it's such a fun app, and we're going to be doing streams on there fairly regularly, so download the Etsy app on the App Store or Google Play Store, and head to the upcoming streams section. It is free to download, and we will keep you updated on when we are doing streams on there. We've also got an answer now from David Garcia about what happened last night. And this one is absolutely... I'm really interested.
We need a breaking news graphic for this type of stuff.
We might. We might. David Garcia is saying, it was just me being the better, bigger person. I was with him at the host stand. We were both waiting for our table. I simply said, "Hey, Punk," and reached out my fist. He gave me a dismissive look and an annoyed sigh and walked away. Oh, that is bad. If that is true, that is bad, actually.
Yeah.
If you're in line and you just go, "Hey, Punk," you're not asking for anything. You're just giving him it. That is bad. Yeah. If he just, okay. I'm with you on that one, David.
It's Punk. I mean, did you expect him to be Mr. Rogers? It's Punk.
I expect him to be a bit nicer than that.
Look, maybe it's because I'm from New York. I expect people from Chicago to be that way, guys from Philly to be that way. Yeah. It's just an aura.
It may also down. And listen, I'm not making an excuse for Punk, but if you're in a restaurant, which presumably that's where you are, you're waiting for the table on the restaurant. Yeah, they were at the host
sign, so they were queuing up.
I could see that. After a long day of him doing so, I could see it. Now, to me, I think the fist bump wouldn't have been a big deal. I don't have an issue with it, but again, it's Phil Brooks. That's kind of his MO. It's not.
Oh gosh.
I mean, MJF takes people's money at conventions and literally throws their crap all over the place and treats them like garbage, and they're like, "It's great. He treated me like trash."
Yeah,
you got that for free.
Oh gosh, he's turned heel in real life. MDB says now we have Midwestern values in Chicago. Right. I mean,
Right.
Oh, gosh. Well, let's move on, shall we, to talk about Jacob Fatu. Because as humans, we do tend to presume a few things which end up being wrong. One of those things was back in the day, we thought the earth was flat. Now, despite what some forums online might try to tell you, the earth is in fact not flat. It is indeed round. But one other thing which we learned last night was that chairs, which we previously thought would hurt people if they went into them, actually don't hurt Jacob Fatu. This man punched away the chair, completely no-sold it. It was incredible. Megan, what did you think about Jacob Fatu and Damian Priest's interaction and then their tag match in the main event?
Well, first I want to bring up, I just know there is some wrestling content creators, podcasters right now just saying Jacob did not know how to take a hit. Listen, Jacob is supposed to be this guy, he's this strong, he's masculine, he's scary, he's got a little hood to him, and I think he met his match with Damian Priest. Now, I don't know what it was about that promo that really had me really invested, but I've it's interesting because I never had any ideas of what Jacob and Damian Priest would look like, but I think we needed that. We definitely needed that. And I want to know what it is that they're actually going to do when it comes down to LA Knight. Like, how long is he going to be lingering when it comes down to this bloodline feud? The match was good. I didn't really feel like he was needed. I would have loved if it was just a singles match between Jacob and Damian Priest. I'm hoping that it will eventually lead to that. But I love what they're doing with Jacob. I love that he came out and he said the leash is off. That means he's not under the orders of Solo. He's going to do his own thing. He's going to do what he wants when he wants. I want to see where it goes. You think he's going to be in the Royal Rumble? I think so. I think he's going to be in it, and I think he's going to
as well.
And he's going to dominate. He's not going to win, but he is definitely going to dominate that match. Absolutely.
No doubt about it. I cannot wait for it. And I agree with you, Megan. I mean, it was such a cool spot. And I love the presentation of him. So does I Make Beats and Sean Ellis as well. Melissa, shout out. Melissa's got a question. Will it be an everyday thing, or how often will we be doing it? We're planning to do it about once a week. We're going to jump in there. We can answer some questions, all that stuff. Clark can argue with you guys about Cody. Is he actually a bad guy? Has he always been a bad guy? Are the tie clips a giveaway? You guys can argue about all of that with him. But right now, we are going to argue about 3-hour SmackDowns, because I have a burning hot take for you guys. I think they absolutely suck. I am a SmackDown guy. SmackDown is the weekly show I started watching when I got into wrestling, but quite frankly, they are too long. Way too long. They feel a lot longer than 3-hour Raws used to feel. Maybe the reason being is that there's nothing of note happening on it. It is the least noteworthy SmackDowns we've had in years, and it just feels like 3 hours of filler. Now, last night, 2 interesting things happened in that show. Only 2 things which I was like, you know what, that was worth my time watching. And we've spoken about them both. Punk and Owens and Jacob Fatu, his promo. But apart from that, I thought it was a completely missable episode. And here's the thing. 3-hour shows on a Friday night. Your competition is a Friday night. People can either go out with friends or for 3 hours watch SmackDown. That's a big, big commitment. And quite frankly, right now, I don't think they're living up to it. And I also just don't think SmackDown's working at 3 hours. Megan, I want to get your thoughts on this one first.
I agree. I've been having a real tough time trying to watch all 3 hours. It I mean, as I've said before, they need to work on the brand split. I don't think they have all of the right pieces to the puzzle when it comes down to keeping SmackDown interesting for 3 hours. If they're not going, if the window for the transfer between brands has now closed, then they should probably be a little bit more open with the brands popping up on each show, which, as you can see, having CM Punk on the show last night did bring up the ratings. So clearly they know people are not really checking for SmackDown as much as they would like them to. So this is the reason why they are allowing some of these Raw wrestlers to be on SmackDown. And I feel like that's the only thing that's working right now.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree with you, to be honest with you. It's very weird at the minute, the entire brand split, and Raw being 2.5 hours, SmackDown being 3 hours. I mean, we got a comment here from MDB saying 2.5 hour SmackDowns would be great.
Yeah.
Jeff P is saying greetings from Ecuador. Would you not be on board for 2.5 hour SmackDowns, Megan?
I would be, as long as they continue what they're doing right now. I do feel like, having the likes of certain wrestlers from Raw on SmackDown to interact with those SmackDown talent, the wrestlers over there, has helped, because we've seen the same people fight each other almost every week, and people are tuning out to it. They don't want to keep seeing the same fights, like how we had 7 matches of Carmelo and Andrade.
That's
it was a lot. Same thing with LA Knight. So you want to bring some of those people to this show, and or just do better with the draft, because they sent a lot of top hitters on Raw, in my opinion. I feel like they did.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you on actually, I kind of do, I kind of don't. I agree that they were starting to get repetitive. I completely agree on that one. But that's why I like the idea of this transfer window. I thought it was such a good idea, but now they're just not ending it. It's like they mixed up the rosters, perfect, and they're just not ending it.
Here's the thing. They've never honored the brand split, ever.
And it annoys
in
me.
all the years, they've never. It's the most weak drawing of the line that you could possibly have. So, I always kind of find it laughable. We're doing transfer window. Oh, you got an official title now for this? Because all the other times, look, Cody's on Raw. He's not on Raw. Look, Roman's on Raw. Like, at the end of the day, Raw's going to end up with the better end of this thing, because Netflix paid a heck of a lot more money than USA did. So at the end of the day, Raw is always going to be the flagship one. But the 3 hour thing, it's too long. Like, after a long week of work, I'm exhausted. So, like, this has happened to me every week since they've gone to 3 hours with this thing, where I'm watching it and I'm going, all right, so this will be done at 10, and then I could put on something. I was like, oh, crap. That's right. This is 3 hours now. It hasn't done anything for me. I love that Raw's only 2.5. I like the 2 hour shows. So 2.5 is like a very sweet spot, I think. 3 hours, great for pay-per-views. Weekly shows, it's going to be a lot of filler. Like, it's not going to be must see for the full 2.5 hours. It never really is. I mean, during the Attitude Era, it was crash TV. But that was not sustainable. Like, none of that stuff was sustainable. So that's why it didn't last. But I think there's going to be a shakeup. It's this weird position where they're building to Mania, but they have plans for people. They don't have plans for other people, like Carmelo. There's no plan for Melo. There's probably not a plan for Andrade either. They're probably going to be in the Andre, which means nothing. That's probably where those two are probably going to be, unless something dramatic happens in the next few months. But in all seriousness, that's probably the direction they're going. So you're going to focus. Cody's going to be doing something. Kevin's going to be doing something. Punk's going to be doing something. some of these, Tiffany will be involved with something. Nia will probably be involved with something. Like there's people that are going to be involved with stuff on the SmackDown brand. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But the brand split's got to be. It's very tough to be even. It's so stacked, but at the same point, you're like, yeah, but these guys faced each other before, so all the only difference is it's on Raw instead of SmackDown now. Like that ain't going to do it either. It's very difficult, which is why there's always an influx of talent. It's another reason why the partnership with TNA could come in handy for things of going, oh, okay, we need something fresh. Oh, well, no one expected Moose to come out to face Jacob Fatu, for example. Like no one expected that. You have the NXT roster. You have enough talent and connections to enough talent where you could give us unique and different matches that it could work. 3 hours SmackDown, it's too long. 2.5 is really the true sweet spot for it. Unless you were converting one of the hours to a specific thing like cruiserweights or the women, or you're converting an hour to it. But then I don't think they're going to do that either from a sponsorship standpoint, because then it looks bad if a company goes, I don't want to sponsor that hour. I want to, it'll be a whole thing. So I think 3's too long for any of these shows, whether it's Raw or whether it's SmackDown. 2.5 is really the true sweet spot for any of these things. I think Hunter said years ago that he thought 90 minutes was the sweet spot when he was running NXT. So
he took it back then, and he said he thinks he's wrong now. He's actually got the buck for the main roster.
Yeah, so well, for NXT it was probably the sweet spot.
Oh yeah,
considering
sorry,
just a smaller roster,
been,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I really think at this point, 2.5 is really the sweet spot for this. 2.5, SmackDown for 2, Raw being 2.5. I think you can run with that. Yeah, I do.
We got a couple of comments I want to get to. Firstly, I Make Beat says WWE would work better as 3 hours without the brand split. I've got a video on that next week because I think brand splits are super important for the wrestling business as a whole, and I'll explain why next week. Melissa Robinson says, I was thinking about starting to watch WWE, surprise Ben, but I just kind of find all the different storylines a bit confusing and overwhelming. Where do you start? One of the best places I think to actually start is the Royal Rumble tonight, because it's only, it's not going to be that long of a pay-per-view. You'll get to see a lot of the wrestlers. You'll become familiar with them all. Commentary does a brilliant job. But the great thing about WWE, which a lot of hardcore fans hate about it, but it's great for casual fans, is that they explain every bit of every story when you watch.
That's why it works. Like, this is a side thing, and I don't mean to cut you off with the questions, but the one thing that I loved, and I want to mention this, I love the promo package they did for Cody and Kevin Owens. The music video, I thought that was a great encapsulation of the feud.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What about you, Megan? You got any advice for where to start?
I think it's just like what you said, tune into the Royal Rumble, watch what the commentators say. I would say also go on Twitter as well and interact with some of the tweets. People would definitely fill you in for the most part as it goes along, maybe some not in so nice of ways, but they will correct you if you get something wrong. But at the end of the day, it can be overwhelming because there's a lot of stories going on and there's history with a lot of these wrestlers, and sometimes they want to bring some of that back. So therefore, I think the best advice is to just tune into Royal Rumble and just have fun with it, because you're going to get confused. I took a break from watching wrestling. I stopped watching it after Punk had left, and I didn't pick up on it again until the pandemic when everyone was locked up in their homes. So it took me a lot to catch up in the last 5 years or so, but I did, because a lot of the things I remember before he had left WWE, it kind of spills out into what is going on now, especially with everyone reminding him, you left 10 years ago. this is what has happened since you've been gone, you know? And so I'm like, oh yeah, so this is what happened, you know? So, yeah, I just wouldn't get too caught up because you will get confused, but it will all make sense eventually.
So Megan, what you're saying is when they say that to Punk, you feel like they're talking to you.
Oh yeah, they absolutely talking to me because they are telling me what I missed. But if you want to think of Punk as the rabbit to follow, yeah, I feel like a lot of rabbit holes kind of start with him. So just follow him and watch the things that he say, because he is a historian and he likes to remind people of their history and what they've done wrong and stuff. So you might want to follow up with him as well.
Absolutely. We got Sean Ellis saying the Royal Rumble pre-show starts in less than 20 minutes. You are right. The main show will start in 2 hours and 20. 2 hours and 20. Wait.
2 hours 19. You're right.
2 hours 19 minutes. That's right. I'm getting confused now, Sean Ellis. But you are right. The kickoff does start in 19 minutes time.
I don't mean to cut you off, boss man, honestly. But this starting at 6 o'clock is not.
I'm not a fan of this.
No, I agree. The kickoff shows are way too long.
No,
the main show.
The main show. Yeah.
The reason why I can tell you guys right now why. The reason being is the United States is no longer the biggest priority because Netflix are paying more. No, Netflix are paying more for international pay-per-views than Peacock are paying for pay-per-views in the US. So once Netflix gets it, maybe it'll change again. But now, outside of the US, on Netflix with a priority because that's where their money's coming from. It's a much bigger deal.
Listen, I would have been okay with a 7 o'clock start time. I think I would settle for 7. 6 is too early.
Oh no, you still have a Saturday evening afterwards.
Then as soon as I get off of here, I have to go. I have to hurry up and cook and stuff and be ready for the 6 o'clock hour while listening to the kickoff, even though I know what's going on, but it gets you, hyped up for the pay-per-view. It's too early. 6 o'clock is way too early. I hope this isn't a thing because, like Anthony can agree. It was something about watching a pay-per-view at 8 o'clock or watching a live boxing match at 8 o'clock. That was
I'm okay with it being on Saturdays though. I prefer Saturday pay-per-views over Sunday.
I
do have to say that.
I do too. On the occasion, like with SummerSlam being 2 days this year, you get prepared for certain pay-per-views to be for 2 days.
Mania.
Now, we do have a pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia next year.
Yeah, we got that coming up too.
So if we're starting early, are we going to start like at 12 or 11 instead of the 1 o'clock hour here? So we start at 1 on the East Coast.
I don't think it's going to go even earlier there. I think it'll be the same start time as usual in Saudi, I presume.
It'll be 9 a.m. Watch it, Megan. It'll be 9 a.m.
As long as it's not the 5 a.m. like the Elimination Chambers. That was the most difficult pay-per-view to stay up
and I think they realized that too based on the viewership.
I literally went, no. I think Archie asked me, he's like, are you going to watch it live? I said, no, I'm sleeping in. I'll stay off the phone. When I wake up, I'll watch it. I'm not getting up at 5 to watch this.
I knocked off. I literally fell asleep, woke up Rhea won. I missed her whole entire match. So it's hard. Don't ever do that again. I cannot do the 5 a.m. shows. I can't.
Me and I Make Beats are delighted with these 11 p.m. start times in the UK. Much better than the 1 a.m.
I gotta be honest with you. I don't know how you guys do that. Like you're up in the middle. I would just watch it the next day. Soul. I don't know. I know that's your thing, but like, no.
It's difficult. 11 is so much better.
Yes,
it is so much better.
No, can't do it. Absolutely can't.
No.
That does bring us to the end of the show. Royal Rumble, 2 hours, 15 minutes away, whether you guys like it or not. I am beyond hyped. It is so unpredictable, like we've said, and it is going to be a fun one. Thank you to everybody who's watched the show today and commented along. We really do appreciate it. Shout out to you, Anthony. Thank you for joining me, and shout out to you, Megan, as well. Thank you for joining me. We will be back same time, same place tomorrow to give our thoughts on the Rumble. See you guys then. Ba 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 ba. Beep.